techniques and stuff. So until 7:30 when we play, hey, missed you too, Fenton. Sorry I haven't been on, dude. I've just been fucking slammed. So yeah, at 7:30 we're doing Terraria with Buster, but from here on out, no, the Jura. I'm not watching beginner guides necessarily for me, although there are always points that you forget about when you do stuff. But yeah, we've recently been watching like the odd kind of educational video where people have been asking about particular techniques, and we've been going over them, and I've been really enjoying it because it's been like solidifying what I think or changing what I think I know about some of these techniques or giving me new ideas. But also, I think it's good to be able to sort of clarify on maybe some of the things that they gloss over, or some of the things in these videos that people say that are maybe not as true as they're presenting them as. Like when you say something does something to a mix, and sometimes you could actually do the opposite or something totally different and it would work. So, with that said, are there any techniques or anything you guys want to chat about or do? That if not, we can watch the second compression one, or we could do EQ. Actually, yeah, EQ or compression. What do you guys want to watch? I'm gonna have another bite of food while you decide, and maybe compression, both. Yeah, we can do both. We got 90 minutes. Let's just get on with the compression. I'll eat and I'll obviously, like last time, I will stop it if there's anything that really like I feel like needs more contextualizing or something. Oh, Hokey, hell yeah, man. Fair enough, Croquetta. I wonder if, seeing as you don't produce music, Croquetta, but I know you've been in pretty much all the streams, I wonder if someone sat you down in front of Logic, if you'd be able to like kind of remember anything out of like subconscious learning and stuff. Anyway, without further ado.
Hi, and welcome back. Let's start by wondering why we need attack and release controls at all.
Oh, getting right in there.
Explain that with a sine wave at 200 Hz, which gives us a steady signal level just below the threshold. But of course, the sine wave is not really a steady signal. In reality, it oscillates from positive to negative and back again 200 times a second. If the compressor reacted instantly to only the peaks of the waveform, the result would be severe distortion, with our sine wave starting to look more like a square wave. So let's see what happens if I suddenly boost the signal level above the threshold. And we can see on the graph that the gain reduction is smoothed out and applied gradually. And if the signal suddenly drops back down below the threshold, the gain rides back up smoothly as well. This smoothing means the compressor can turn down the volume of the sine wave without distorting it beyond all recognition. But if we look at the resulting waveform, we can see a blip at the start of the loud section, where the attack stage of the compression kicks in.
This is weird. I'm eating watching compression videos online.
Section, as the release stage ramps the gain back up to unity. It's these bits where all the action happens. The attack stage changes the shape of the waveform briefly as it rides the gain down. And the release stage changes it again as it rides the gain back up again. Of course, most real-world signals don't behave like a sine wave test tone. So unless you're compressing an organ part, chances are the compressor will be either attacking or releasing whenever the signal is above the threshold. So let's try a more interesting example. Drums are about as far away from a steady state signal as you can get.
What are you talking about, Callisto? I'd be happy to answer your question. What is sustain? I need you to clarify that slightly, but I'm more than happy to get into that one. Pasta turned out shit. I'm kind of mad about it, I'll be honest. Fucking angry at myself. Oh, he's leaving me hanging, man. Oh, ah! I'm assuming that a sustain, if there's a sustain control, Yeah, if there's a sustain control on your compressor, it would probably be between these two. So let's look at this. So the attack is how quickly it pushes it down, right? The release is how quickly it comes back up once it's outside of the threshold. Sustain, I would assume, is a delay. Is a delay in how long it takes for the release to... Oh, I'm pretty sure sustain is the same as hold here. He hasn't got onto that yet, but I'm sure he will. But basically, it's a delay until the release actually kicks in. So like it can sustain the push. That's what I would assume. That's what hold does. But I don't know if that's necessarily what sustain on your plugin that you're talking about does. But you can see why you'd want to use that, right?
And are a great way to hear the effects of compression. In this case, I'm processing a subgroup of an otherwise fully mixed drum kit, but with all compressors turned off. Working with Pro C2's default settings, I'm going to start by turning the knee down to 0 again, to make the knee of the graph sharper and the compression more aggressive. I'll turn the ratio up.
Honestly, that's one of the biggest tips that anybody can give you for compression, is whether you want a smooth or a sharp knee. So this is a hard knee, so it's like got a full-on like angle here. It's got a full-on angle here, which means that the compression is a lot more audible. And if you soften it out, then it's like a gradual reduction as things come towards being loud. But yeah, worth keeping that in mind, because sometimes you want to compress something, but you don't want it to be audibly compressed. You're just trying to color it in a nice way and make it feel nice and solid or thick.
All the way up again. And set the fastest possible attack time to catch those fast transients at the start of each drum hit. I'm also going to switch to the punch compression style, which is often a good choice.
My assumption would be that, Hokie.
And now I'll adjust the threshold until we're seeing about 12 to 15 dB of gain reduction on the meters.
Whoa.
This is too much. But you're going to have to apply too much compression while learning to use it and training your ears to hear the effects. So don't be afraid to really smash things hard to start with.
Good advice.
Using fast compression settings and processing audio with lots of high frequency content like this, it will usually sound a bit better if you enable oversampling at the bottom. But I'm not going to go into the reasons for that here, just take my word for it for now. Let's take a look at the level meters to the right.
I'm going to be honest, he's saying that's too much compression. It sounds really good to me.
Levels to output levels. But notice that both meters display two different readouts. The higher, darker bar shows peak levels, which tells us how much headroom we've got left before the red clip lights come on. The lower, brighter bar is more interesting most of the time, as this shows average levels, which correlate much better with perceived loudness. There isn't much difference between input and output levels right now, as we've got auto gain turned on, which attempts to automatically set the output gain to compensate for the current compressor setting. This is only an estimate, so usually needs a bit of manual tweaking to get it just right. If I turn off auto gain, we see the actual effect of the compression. And I need to dial in manual makeup gain of around 10 dB to match the average levels of input and output.
I feel like makeup gain's a bit of a weird one. I mean, obviously, if you're compressing a sound really heavily, then you do want to turn it back up, because a compressor is a turn down error. At the end of the day, that's all it is. It just does it in a certain way. What's really worth doing is, like, I don't trust the auto gain on any compressor. I'll be honest, but it is really important to try and level match your compression, just to a point where, like, they feel the same volume, not are the same volume, and that's a different thing. Yeah. Well, no, that's an expander, Zerk. Like, people call it upwards compression, but it's just an expander. All compressors are downwards. Yeah.
Notice that when average levels are roughly matched, the peak levels of the output are still a little lower than the input. so the compression is slightly reducing the difference between peak and average.
Hey,
level.
thank you, Vampire King.
Now let's try adjusting the release time. With the shortest, fastest setting, things start to sound a little unnatural.
Zerk, if you want to check that, feel free, but my understanding is that an expander is up and a compressor is down. Expand and compress. Makes a lot of sense in terms of like the words as well.
The body and tail of the snare is now almost the same level as the initial transient, and it sounds more like a burst of noise than a real drum.
So like your attack is what keeps your transients intact or not completely screwed. When you're bringing things together, like a lot of things together, and they're hitting at the same time, you'll get like most transients tend to be quite full in terms of how much frequency information there is. Thank you so much, Cook. What's that? I know it was thank you. And get out of the fur. Yeah. Thank you. Get out of Hefu? Is that what it is? Oh, Elgie, I totally missed yours as well. Vampire King, I thanked you too. Okay, we're up to date. I'm sorry I missed yours, Elgie. Yeah, Hefu. Anyway, so if you've got a load of things like doubling up around the transients, you're always going to have a way louder signal. Ah, hell yeah! Thank you so much, Vampire King. Oh, Rival Music got it too. That's fucking sick. Yeah, Zerg, that's what I thought. Like, basically, an expander doesn't move this from 45 degrees down to a 180. It moves it from this, from here upwards. So after a certain point, it turns it up instead of turning it down. But let's not confuse the people, please, Zerg. Yakata, thank you. Oh, you guys, you're getting so many subs out right now. Anyway, so yeah, if you compress things lightly with like a reasonably high attack, you can often get things to just kind of feel squeezed, but also clean and kind of uncompressed. We'll do some examples earlier.
Extreme. The drums sound much more natural and less processed, and the average levels drop as the gain is held down for much longer after each hit. In fact, the release is too slow to ever fully recover between hits, so we're really only applying about 6 dB of compression. In between, we can find a setting that preserves some of the natural decay of the drum, yet still releases fast enough to bring up the reverb tails and make the drums sound more powerful. At this point, let's try toggling bypass to compare with the uncompressed drums.
Yoshi TV, thank you so much. Oh shit, Vampire King, I hope you're alright. Damn.
Notice how polite
be safe.
and well-mannered the drums sound without compression. While the compressed version has attitude and feels like he's hitting harder. This illustrates just how critical compression is to modern drum sounds. The uncompressed sound evokes a vintage feel, like recordings from the 50s or 60s. But the compression brings us back to the future, or at least to the 1980s.
Yeah, you can do some crazy stuff that sounds really 80s if you compress like really hard.
Just like EQ, however, it's important to listen to your compression settings in context. Let's bring in the guitars, bass, and keys, and listen to the way they blend with the drums. The kick drum has a soft, pillowy character, which is more obvious when it's trying to fit around the bass guitar. And the snare lacks a bit of presence and impact, tending to sit behind the guitars and keys.
That should be better, guys.
This is due to a too fast attack time, which is smashing too much of the initial transients off the drums and robbing the mix of punch and definition. But notice what happens if I increase the attack time a bit. Suddenly, the sine
oh,
at
shit!
200 hertz, we get to the halfway point.
I was going to say, Don't Kick Around's out on Friday. Johnny O'Brien.
To punchy with slightly slower settings. thumpy as we get to the halfway point. The auto makeup gain feature does a great job of keeping average levels consistent as I adjust the attack time up and down. But notice what happens to the peak levels. With the fastest attack settings, these are lower than the input, and we're reducing the difference between peak and average levels. But if I set the attack time somewhere between 5 and 10 milliseconds instead, we now see the opposite. Peak levels are now higher than the input, and we're increasing the peak to average ratio. In a sense, we have increased the dynamic range of the drums, even though compression is theoretically supposed to do the opposite. But we've done so in a very particular way, which helps to create a consistent impact for each drum hit.
Really important for a lot of, like, the most modern kinds of, Uranus Explorer, thank you for the 100 bits. But, like, really modern stuff. It's all very compressed, but very dynamic at the same time. It's in that kind of zone. It's like where you're trying to get the transients to sit out in front of the things really intentionally, and then let everything else hit in the background, and then let the vocal kind of just live between the transients. That tends to be the way.
Let's once again toggle bypass and compare to the dry signal. And notice the drastic difference in the way the compressed drums punch through the mix.
Jesus. Oh yeah, I'll go Nexus. Thank you. 5 months.
Notice the curvy shape of the release stage on the gain reduction graph. And let's try switching to the classic compressor style instead. This looks very much the same on the graph. But we've lost the punchy attacks that the punch style gave us.
I had to start using different compressor modes.
The drums using the attack time. But no matter what attack time I dial in, this style doesn't give us those boosted transients that we had with the punch style. If I switch to the opto style, however, those transients are back with a vengeance. But we can clearly see a difference in the shape of the release stage. So the body of the drum sounds different if I switch back to the punch style again. Usually there isn't a single correct choice of compression style. They can all be used to control the dynamic range, but each has a subtly different flavor which you can exploit creatively. The punch style might be a good choice if you want a dynamic and punchy drum sound, while the classic style might be a better choice when you want a rounder, softer character.
Thank you, Quill.
If I switch to the pumping style, however, the differences are more dramatic. Now the initial attacks are pretty fierce, and it can start to sound unnatural, with a choking effect as the gain reduction suddenly clamps down on the body of the drum.
He's kind of going over the same shit now. Let's give him his last 2 minutes.
We can clearly see a difference in the shape of the release curve, with the gain releasing slowly to begin with, then speeding up in the opposite manner to the punch style. This shape helps to create audible pumping as the compressor releases. Listen out for the hi-hats and the way they pump up in level whenever there's a space between the kick and snare, and especially the crash cymbal at the start of this loop. The pumping style is designed not to be transparent, which can be useful when you're trying to train your ears to some of the possible negative side effects of compression. If I toggle back to the punch style again, you can hear that the difference is dramatic, and the punch style sounds much more natural.
Wow!
However, now that you've noticed that pumping in the hi-hats and cymbals, Notice that it's not entirely gone with the punch style. The hi-hats still jump out a bit at times.
My food kind of sucks tonight, Quill, actually. I'm sad about it.
And the crash cymbal still pumps audibly. This is something I'm going to look at in part 3. Thanks for watching.
So we can watch more compressing videos. We can watch the EQ video, or I could set up an example and kind of take you through some different ways of it, kind of like mirroring what he's doing, but maybe tailor it a bit more to dancey, more electronic produced music. Dan from Belgium, what was I eating? I kind of made a sort of almost Alfredo style pasta, but I kind of riffed on it and it didn't go too well, I'll be honest. We've already watched the linear phase videos. That's a fucking great one, though. I'll agree with that for sure. Sir Gruth, thank you. Okay, example or EQ? Is that the general vibe? I feel like that might be the volume shaper sidechain tips, please. That one's just kind of one of the. It's kind of hard. Kind of hard to say on that one. Like, I just kind of make space for things that are loud with that. I tend not to use it for more mix-based sidechain. I just use it so that I can hear the sidechain in a nice way, and then just play with the shape of the release. Should we go with an example? Should we do that? I recently got some cool drum hits, and we could just like... Or let's go for EQ. Yeah, okay, let's go for EQ. Actually, no, let's EQ, and then we'll see if that can lead us to any other examples that would be cool. Like, then we could do examples for both.
Beginner's Guide to EQ.
16 minutes. Fuck, let's go.
Apart from the volume fader, EQ is the most basic and fundamental tool available to us when mixing. But learning how to use...
I'll give you a cheeky little tip here, Reckless Producing, or Reckless Prod. When someone says boxy, or warm, or muddy, or shiny, or airy, or crunchy, or many other words... They mean it the way they mean it. That's it. They can only mean it the way they mean it. I've been in fucking sessions where two people have said boxy and meant completely different things. Unhelpful words. Very unhelpful words. Hey, yeah, like, there are some words that generally mean the same thing. Like, if you say muddy, generally people are talking about here. Generally. But yeah. But yeah, a well-developed ear for sample selection. I think the general rule for me nowadays, and this may not be helpful, or it may be, my general rule for samples is, do I like listening to that sound on its own? Does it sound good on its own? And if it does, then yeah. But not always. I don't know. I don't think I can fully agree to what I just said then, actually. Disregard that. Let's watch this EQ video, and I'll actually him when I can.
Learning how to use it effectively can be a difficult and frustrating process. So I'm going to try to distill down the most important information that I wish someone had shared with me when I first started out.
Aww.
The desk you see here is the 72-channel Audience ASP 8020.
Here are some things. Here are some things that I wish people had told me when I was starting out. Here's a giant console. Anyone?
Installed at the Foundry Studios in Sheffield. And the channel EQs are much like the ones I first learnt on.
Hey, B.
I'm running a stereo mix through a pair of channels, which I've panned hard left and right. The EQ section above is actually split into 2 parts.
Fuck off, you've been in that room before, Buster. Wait, is this one of those things you did for uni? Is this through uni when you were meeting like big engineers as part of your uni courses and stuff? Yeah, I thought it might be. Reckless Producing. Thank you. Damn. So many subs today. You guys rule. I'm going to keep the video going.
The high and low shelving bands at the top can be switched in and out independently of the 2 mid bands below. And each section can be switched from the long fader path to the short fader path. So you can choose whether to record with the EQ or just apply it to the playback signal. if you're using a split console rather than an inline console like this one.
Why is he assuming we work on consoles?
Or a live console. You will probably see a different arrangement with the low shelf at the bottom and the mid bands in the middle.
Don't care, come on.
Anyway, the shelving controls are not that dissimilar to the bass and treble tone controls found in the hi-fi amps. If I turn up the high shelving knobs, I can boost the high frequencies and make the mix sound brighter. And if I turn them down, I can make the mix sound
Does he do the whole thing? Oh no, okay. I might skip. I'm gonna skip the console shit.
I remember when I first started out, the only advice I got was just use your ears. But frankly, I didn't find that very helpful.
I apologize for all the times I've said that. I still mean it, but I know it's unhelpful.
Of course, what I really needed to do was to train my ears, so I could recognise problems and translate them into EQ settings, in much the same way that a musician needs to train their ears to recognise intervals and chords. Like learning an instrument, this is going to take time and practice, but you can speed up the process with some simple exercises, which I'll come to later on. Okay, so let's take a look at ProQ2 and see how the situation changes using a modern EQ plugin. This time I'm processing a stereo pair of drum room mics. And the first difference is I can use a stereo plugin to process both channels, so I don't have to match my left and right EQ settings manually. If I drag in from the right, I can create a high shelving band. And again, we see a very gentle slope, much like the high shelf on the desk. If I boost, I can increase the level of the high frequencies and make the cymbals louder and brighter. While cutting makes the cymbals quieter, making the overall sound darker, and putting more emphasis on the body of the...
I have a feeling that this video is not going to be as useful. And I think the best thing we can do is if we do go to the example stage, and I'll just make a drum beat. And then if we have time, some chords and a melody. And what I'll do with each of the hits of the drums as I add them, is I'll take you through all the parts of them in terms of where they sit on the spectrum and what those parts generally mean for both, how those parts kind of matter in terms of their dynamics, in terms of like compression and stuff. Go away, Doc, please. Oi. Come on. Sick. Right, so I'm going to use some, kind of quite dynamic hits that I've got at the moment. Samples, kicks. I think it's the blonde kick that I like. It's not that one. Oh, that one. Sorry, let me just find it. Oh, no, it's pound. There we go. And actually, because they're going to be, this pack gives you like different hits of the same sound. So I'm just going to do that. So, kicks. We'll start with kicks. Oh, I love it, Buster. That's what I like to hear, man. So, okay, here we go. 170. Oh, screw it. So, let's slow it down a bit. It'll be easier to take in that way. Plus, compressors and stuff, obviously, because they work on a time scale, it's harder to produce stuff. Hey, Skater Dude Gaming. Right. So this is quite a dark kick, obviously. So let's go top down, because the easiest thing to note is at the top. So usually with kicks, unless they're full of fuzz and hiss or fluff or noise or whatever words you want to use, like a pss kind of kick, like a pff sort of thing where there's a lot going on, then your tops tend to just be a click. I'm going to do this loads. You hear that? This is the top. I don't mind that on this one, personally. Now, the tone of your transient tends to be from about 500, maybe lower for some kicks. Hey, Mofalt, thank you. We're talking about EQ. I'm taking everybody through how I think about EQ right now. We literally just started. Welcome, the bats are back. Oh, and fucking, yeah, 4 months. So yeah, the top. Yeah! Your transient pretty much exists in this space here. That. So in this area, you have a lot of choices. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do this on a separate EQ. So we've boosted the highs because it was such a dark kick. That's kind of an easy one. So your transient exists probably about from here to here, like your tone of your transient. So we can actually do kind of any number of things to a kick in this zone to completely change it. So watch this. Watch how much of a different kick we get just by doing this. Oh, okay. Dude, Nick Fat, thank you for asking. I didn't want people to not be understanding that, and I totally missed it. Oh my shit. Dude, flip Dreamland. Flip it. How you doing, man? We're talking about EQ. I haven't told you guys this yet, but every Sunday before Terraria, we're going to do this. We're going to fucking talk about techniques and things. Dude, I'll hit you up. I'll hit you up. I'll send you, I don't know if I have stems, but I definitely have an acapella, which I'm sure would be helpful. Hell yeah, man. That's so exciting. Shit. Miss you too, dude. I hope you're doing okay. Bedtime jams tonight? Maybe. Yeah, maybe bedtime jams. But yeah, so did you guys notice how much this is changing the different kick? It's a different kick all around. And like you can do this in different places, like versus. Thank you, Mr. Gamma. Everybody say thank you, Gamma. The man with possibly some of the best dance moves I've ever seen. So yeah, like your EQ and your mids, especially for your kick, can really change everything. Regular and dynamic EQ. Regular and dynamic EQ only happen when they go. Dynamic EQ is closer to a compression, basically, but it doesn't have an attack or release time. It just does it in time. So a kick's quite a bad example for that. I'll show you guys. I'll show you guys that in a little bit. Don't worry about dynamic EQs right now. So yeah, we've got this. Like, we can do this, and we could even invert. Different kick, pretty much. And now, like, you might not necessarily want any of this. This kick has got a pretty flat transient. You can see here in the analyzer that when it's hitting at full tilt, it's pretty flat, which I'm actually kind of proud of because I did a whole fucking EQ over here, which is nice. And it took it pretty flat. We could do with a bit more highs, but there you go. So actually, that's kind of a thing about having your ears trained because you'll kind of know when to stop turning things up when you're approaching flat. Generally, you want your kick transient to be flat, unless you've got like a gap in your mix for it that you kind of want to exploit. So like maybe you've got not much going on in 3,500, and you can just get away with having extra in your kick, and it'll just like feel like it's in its own space. All that sort of stuff. So that's mids on kicks. High mids and mids on kicks. No, I don't care about the kick of the key of the kick ever. I mean, like there's been times where I've experimented with it because it is an interesting concept, but at the end of but I never pick the kick based on the key of the track ever. So, for the sake of the example, let's add something and take something away. Gonna get rid of that. It's nice. Now it sounds kind of scooped, which is surprising because we haven't actually scooped. We've taken out one note and added a little bit of 2K-ish. So when it comes to the high end of kicks and stuff, this might not be the best example, but if you've got too much high end going on in your kicks, you can always do a compression on them. But we're not doing that yet. I'll use a different kick when we get to that. So I'm going to add another Pro Q3 because we're doing these in different things. So our first one was our highs, then our mids, then our lows. So there's not a lot to worry about when it comes to your low end on your kicks because that's kind of where they just exist. I don't find myself ever doing like editing EQs around this tempo, around this area because it doesn't tend to need to happen. But you can see initial punch is usually somewhere between 150 and 250. So then it kind of like flies down to it's like audibly it's kind of like resting point, which is whatever note that is. So one thing that can make your kick sound really fucking low isn't actually by adding more low or taking mids out. It's just here. So this area here that we can hear. Sorry, Siri kind of heard me there and fucking started speaking to me. So this area, the area where you get your initial punch, if you make that really short, and the way you can do that is with a compressor. So we've got this compressor with a really, like, the threshold's going way past it. I use multiband side chaining Louis Ethan. Yeah, you've seen me do this a load of times. So we're just kind of abusing the attack speed to push out this frequency. So instead of it being like this, where it kind of rings out, it's muted. You can even turn it up because of this. See how, while this is resonating, this has been pushed out, right? You can see that it starts full and it comes in slowly. So that's one way you might use multiband compression, which is what we kind of need to understand if we're, with EQ and compression comes the combination of both of them using compression on a specific frequency. And that's one of the uses that I would have. Actually, anybody with slightly better speakers might be able to tell that itchy nose. There's noise in there. It's like hissing. So one way you can fix that, because that's actually good. That's a good example. That kind of sounds how it would sound for those kind of those samples you pick up and they've got a load of noisy tail. You like the low end of them and you like the transient of them, but you don't like the hiss. That's something you can work with. What you can do, put a compressor on the tops, like up here, and do the same thing you would do over here. So you want a high ratio, highest ratio you can go, low threshold. Release doesn't matter too much here, but don't make it 0 because you don't want it to come back up. Because if you have transients from two different sounds, kind of like making the same sound, often it can be a problem. Like you kind of want to keep the transient from this one intact. For those who don't know what the transient is, it's the click. It's the initial moment of impact on a given sound. Yeah, you would lose so much doing that. Reckless, you're not necessarily wrong. You do want to shorten the sample, but you only want to shorten the high end. You only want to shorten the high end. So you can do that. You can do that with multiband compressors. Like over here, all we're doing is we've got a very aggressive, fast compression that's basically eliminating it, right? And then we just bring the attack up and we choose how much of it to let through. And then obviously you can choose how loud you want it to be. How loud you want I'm going to change the knee to hard, sorry, because we want it to be a bit more aggressive. So this is what I was trying to avoid here, where it is pushing it down, but it's coming back up in time for the for the hiss to be there. So you just turn the release up. And we'll get nice clean kick. There's still a bit of that hiss there. But I'd probably like export this and then do the same thing again. Honestly, like the exoscope thing is not that helpful for these things. Like for EQ and stuff, you need to use your ears. You do need to use your ears. Like, yeah, this doesn't tell me anything right now. Like there's no, it's more about the relationship between things is the reason I look at Megascope. No, this isn't using an expander, it's compressing it. I guess you could use the expanding mode, but we haven't been talking about that the last 2 streams, so I don't want to get into that right now. Like I use compression for it. I guess we can check. Oh, oops. I guess we can check expansion mode. So chances are what we would want is a high fast attack, long range, down from 0. Right. Not as good. Versus no. Yeah. I know which I prefer. Free multi-bank from compressors that exist. I think the Melder one. Why am I lowering the high end? What do you mean lowering it? I mean, because there's a hiss. Like you can get much noisier kick drums. Let's see if we have any. Well, kind of like that, but big kicks. Let's get something really noisy. I'm pretty sure I made one the other day. A lot of mine are cleaner. That's pretty noisy. So this same, if I use the exact same compressor on this kick, which has a lot of noise going on in it, sounds like this. Yeah, I got rid of that. Like, it didn't get rid of the mid. You can completely just reduce it to a tick. You know what I mean? And like in this case, I would do this too. So it's all of this stuff. And you can turn a kick like this. Wait, let me solo it. Into a kick like this. That's the same kick, it's just compressed differently. Croquetta, which color? Which colors are you talking about? What happened, Gamma? So we're gonna go back to this more acoustic sounding kick. Purple and the blue. Okay, no, that's just to differentiate. That's just to differentiate between which bands we're looking at. Like, because this is one zone of compression. This is another zone of compression, and then like here is dark because there's nothing going on right now. Yeah, they're just UI choices in that case. However, the colors on the colors on here really do mean something. Colder colors are higher noises, and warmer colors down to red are lower noises. Yeah, dude. Oh, man. I had to learn a fucking load about this sort of stuff when I was making the album because I did a lot of real drum takes, like OMH drum take. Like, this is this it? Yeah. Like, that's only real drums, no triggering, and same with the Dreamland drums too. Like drums. Which one is it? There's one that light saturation Dreamland drums 2. Is this it? Like, no, that's the bad one. Dreamland 168 drum mix dry. So, but yeah, to get like real sounds to sound tight and shit is such a fucking. And like, there's still things I would change about this, but whatever. But anyway, another mad fucking trick. This is actually something that I didn't get to show you guys the other time when we were talking about hard EQs like 96 pole low cuts. As I bring this up into the fundamental here, you'll notice that it's actually going to smear and it'll almost sound like a disperser. You know, it's zapping instead. That's because of the way that it's creating huge phase rotation differences to make what am I trying to say? To make something like that. Like if we duplicate this EQ over and over, wait, let's put it like here. You start getting more and more dispersion. Hear that? That's because that's just the way EQs work. That's kind of not what I'm after. Actually, it does sound like a tom. I don't know about that, Mr. Gamma. I don't know. It's like, I think it's always better to start with or like work with samples that just kind of work. Like, I don't usually do that much work to my kicks and snares, but it's there to kind of like create one, I would say. Does a hard cut like that boost neighboring frequencies? No, it causes resonance, and that's basically because the way that those things work is by phase rotating the frequencies around it. But that's a really complicated thing that you don't really need to worry about. If you do want to learn more about that, there is the FabFilter video on different kinds of phases of EQ, like linear phase and minimum phase. Those both behave so differently, and there's times where you want to use one over the other, and there's actually not correct, but a better choice. But yeah. So let's get out a snare. Let's get out a snare that doesn't have a lot of attitude, and we'll talk about the ways we can fuck with it. I've been using this drum pack so much recently. Which is the one I like? Is it Rebel snare? No, that's the really low one, isn't it? Shit. Flapjack snare? This is fine. We'll use this one. Someone told you to avoid hard cuts like that. I mean, I understand why someone would say that, but it's you can't put rules on shit like that. You can't, because like, you know, we could do kind of what we did a second ago with this snare, where we get like a crazy hard cut, put it just beneath that, and then if we duplicate it a load of times, we'll get like quite an interesting weird thing. Not that it's necessarily what we want, but, you know, if we wanted to, we could do that, and then just like envelope this so that it's, well, not envelope it, compress it so that get this. Not that usable yet. We'd have to play with it, and I don't really want to do that today. But let's go back to the let's go back to EQ. We'll EQ the snare, and then we'll look at different ways we can compress it. Yeah, let's just do that. So again, this is a very dark sample. To be honest, this whole pack is very dark. Let's get it like nice and flat-ish. ignore this EQ. This EQ kind of doesn't really matter. Now we've got like a semi-flat sample. Right, so snares. Snares, we're going to go from bottom to top because it's actually, kicks kind of go top to bottom and snares go bottom to top, which is kind of strange, kind of excluding the transient, but let's not talk about that right now. Right, so we've got fundamental, usually somewhere between 150, this is a fucking low snare, and up to like 500. Sometimes you get ones like little, like they're up here, and they go like, you know, like little woodblock snares. So that's our fundamental. How long that is, how much it tapers off, how soon it starts after initial impact, all affect the way that your snare sounds. With this one, it's got an incredibly long fundamental. It goes like and then holds. A lot of my snares have much shorter fundamentals than this. So next you go into the harmonics of the fundamental. So the fundamental is whenever I say that, it's the frequency or the note that the item kind of like vibrates at. So when you hit a snare, you're hitting a membrane, right? You're hitting like a snare head, and that thing has like a frequency that it would vibrate at, much like a guitar string. Like it has a certain amount of tension on it. It's a certain length, so it vibrates at that frequency. But with any fundamental, there's going to be harmonics, and those, for the most part on a snare, live between 1K and 200. Well, kind of like depending on where this starts, but like they usually stop being audible about 1K. And now, how those come through can really affect the way a snare sounds. Like if these are louder than the fundamental, you get that sort of like rockier snare sound that kind of sounds like they're sort of hitting the side of the drum almost. And this is useful information for dance snares too. We'll get a dance snare out in a minute and kind of do these same principles. How long this lasts is also like a big thing. So yeah, that's something you want to shape in kind of the time domain, not so much EQ, unless you want it to sound really round, in which case, none of it. And just keep your fundamental there. Very round sounding snare. That makes sense? And then without that, we're back to it being kind of like a middle ground snare. It's not really round, it's not really cracky. It's kind of just like it's just a snare, you know? Round snares do sound like jazz snares, you're right. Oh, I just deleted the snare, right. So that's all good. So then we've got 1K through to probably around like 6K. Like all of this area is kind of like your hype or your general kind of like bite of your snare. So if we go from, like we can go, now these are all a bit more resonant than I'd want them to be. Let me change this up a little. Let's just do that. See, even like small changes, like 1 dB up here, or like 4 dB, just to make it a bit more audible. Different snare. Cutting the low frequencies of a snare to make room for bass, in theory, makes sense, but when you're talking about a snare that's so short, like by the time that this snare has finished ringing out its high end, it's only here. It's here. The amount of low end is negligible. Sometimes you get fucking loads of like low ended with a snare, but generally not. Like none of this matters. Like none of this. Like your snares are short, they're mixed aggressively. Everything's side changed to your snare. You don't need to worry about making room for the low end with it, really. And also, sometimes low cutting them can really fuck them up. Like, I don't know if that's going to happen with this one. I'm not going to use a brick wall. Yeah. You kind of lose that room thud. Wow. That's way more. That might not be very clear to everyone because of monitors or listening, but though that sounds radically different to me here where I'm sat. So yeah, like what can we do? What can we do with this snare to make it sound cooler? So the first thing I would personally would do is I would separate the fundamental from the harmonics with a multiband. So just this bit, right? So I'm going to do that same trick I do a lot, to be fair. I'm just low as fuck threshold, slow attack, little bit of release so that it doesn't let any of the snare back in. Actually, it wouldn't let any of the snare back in. That's good. Right? So, and we can change how far down it goes by changing the range, or we can push it all the way out. So then we're onto our harmonics. Bit much. All this. Now, I personally like really loud harmonics, but really short loud harmonics. So you do this, like that. You just get the tiniest little bit. And what that ends up doing is sound like this. Nice and round, but still got some of that crack to it. Versus you don't need a transient shaper if you know how to use compressors. That's my hot take. Transient shapers don't need to exist. Apart from Spiff. Honestly, anything that a transient shaper does, you can do with a compressor with more control. To my knowledge. I could be wrong. So like, now we're choosing how loud our harmonics are. So then we have this area. Now, my favorite thing to do with this area on a snare is to give it some transient and then have it stay where it is. So that again is going to be something more like this. So it's going to have a real, like quite fast release and a slow-ish attack so that we still get some transient, but it's not going to get pushed that far like that. Spiff is expensive as fuck because it does some stuff that no other plugin does. So we can also choose now what sort of resonance we want around here. Like that's always quite clappy. That's always kind of, that one's not going to work here because there's too much resonance. Clappiness, I like. It kind of wants this. And then top end, kind of right on this one. Not even gonna, actually no. So here, with this snare, we've got actually quite an interesting, is it okay to soft clip all drums after transient shaping? Yeah, but you're kind of just undoing all the work you've done. Kinda. Like if you're clipping it itself, like all you're really doing is adding distortion to the beginning and selectively doing it to the beginning. That's a viable thing to do. But if you're making your transient sound cracky and then doing that, honestly, transient shaping is not transient shaping's kind of snake oil AE. And if by that what I mean is like you can shape your transients. It's like, okay, but if I have a compressor, I can shape the volume of anything in any way I like, which you can do on a transient shaper in a very small amount, like in a very specific way. Like it's a specific tool. It's like, why do you need a potato peeler if you know how to peel a potato with a knife? Basically, it's way quicker. Yeah, you have less control though. So interesting thing here, the transient is really quiet in the initial, what am I trying to say? Yeah, the transient is really really quiet on initial impact, but the tail's quite loud. So one thing you can do in a situation like that where something's quiet at the beginning and loud at the end is kind of the same thing we've just been doing again. And it's such a valuable way of doing things. So we just have a little attack like that. So that we're getting mostly the click. And then we just bring up the range until it sounds nice. And like they're kind of like the transient and the tail belong in the same place. So with all of this done, we end up with this. So there's a little too much mid. And a little bit too much of that. So it sounded like this before. And now it sounds like this. Quite a small difference. I'm going to do the top end a little bit more aggressively. There you go. Tyro Music, how's my MB going to fuck up my sound? Are you talking about possibly having problems with phasing on crossovers? Because I use dynamic phase mode for that, and I also make sure that the crossovers in every single one of my plugins are on dynamic phase if I'm ever splitting things. So, yeah, multiband's not going to fuck up your sound. If you understand how you want your sound to exist, so this is now incredibly dynamic, right? Oh, come on, man, it's fine. Honestly, I think genuinely multiband compression needs like demystifying, because people look at it and go, I don't really know what that's for. But when you start thinking about the way that things resonate and go through their things, like, look, let's take the multiband off. We're not going to do the compression. We're going to just get out kilohertz. Where are you? Kilohertz, transient shaper. So, attack. Basically, this attack is attack is the relationship between your attack on your compressor and the threshold. So it's kind of hard to say exactly. Let's get a compressor out. Let's do this. So I want to show you guys the difference between what we can do here and here. So with the attack, the only difference between a transient shaper and a compressor in the things that you do is that you're turning things up and down, which I get makes things a little easier to understand. And you can clip within it. That is a cool feature. But so say you have that little pump, loads of sustain. Like that's just attack and release settings on a compressor. Like, what I would want to do to this snare overall is probably that. And you could get that exact same effect by bringing a compressor like this and like this with a slow attack, with a fast attack, sorry, and a slow release, fast release. And then actually we've done that more, and we can just choose how much transient we have. That's not turning up. You see, you can't do this with a transient shaper, and this is my point, is if I want more transient in this, I change the attack, but then I have to change the speed, which means that it's changing the way that it pumps, all of those things. With a compressor, we choose how long that transient is on the way in, and then with the threshold, we change how far down it goes to, and then with the release, we're setting the same amount of pump. And then the sustain at the end, that's just choosing how loud your volume of your sound is. What is pump? Exactly. Pump is just the feeling of it releasing, and that's what you do here. Honestly, if you guys spent more time with compressors and less time with transient shapers, you'd have a better time, I think, because the brilliant thing about compressors versus transient shapers is they work really well on non-transient data, which means that you can then start compressing your wow sounds, or like your bass sounds or your single bass hits in ways that are creative and useful to make your things better. Tyro, to each his own if you wanna, but like if you want to use transient shapers, I ain't gonna stop you, but you all have my heavy recommendation that using them is hurting you in the long run. Wow, punch mode does sound sick though. I guess pump is kind of like hold time. Like if we have this, if we turn the hold time way up, it holds it down there. So like your hold time is how long you want that pump to last. Right? And then the release time is how quickly it comes back up, which I guess is kind of sustain. Slightly different, but yeah, I like this here. Then you choose how much of your transient you want. It kind of like, in a mix, it moves the snare further and back from the listener as well, which is something you can't really do with a transient shaper in the same way. As we have these going, let me just put some hi-hats in for thingy. The transient shaper gave it a nice tone, better than the compressor. I mean, if you think that way, that's absolutely fine. And I'm not telling you you're wrong for yourself, but to me, it's night and day. Let's listen back to the transient shaper to be sure though, because I don't, if that's really loud. Let me turn that back down. So what? Let's try, a bit more attack, a little pump. There you go. Versus, well, that one's quieter, but that versus this. Yeah, I think I definitely know which I like more. Yeah, I mean, if you like this one more, then sure, but no context for these snares either. Tyro, man, you do you, my friend. When you're gonna have an element repeating unrelentingly in a mix, it's best that sounds good on its own first. Honestly, Toshly Music, I've never compare again. Sure, you know what? We can do one into the other. There you go. Is that right? Oh, let's put that there. Okay, so. This lower one is the compressed one, and the top one is the one below is better. I wholeheartedly agree. Like this, then compressed might be really nice. But you do need to compress, guys, honestly. If you... It was because of that. Yeah, agreed, Buster. Anyway, so we've got that snare. It's still quite dark. The lower is better in your opinion. I agree. I do really like it. You know, we can always just like shift it after because it's still a little dark. This is actually really useful. I don't know if the EQs you guys use have those, but flat tilt, so useful. I just made it brighter basically. Let's see what. No, I do prefer flat tilt. Good for mastering sometimes if you've got a really dark track too. Anyway, so we've got. Let me put some hats in. What am I going to use? Oh, yeah. I made this the other day. Oh, wait. I have this saved as like a full-on preset, don't I? Where is it? Drums, dead, lively hat. Clipping the snare is so good. Let's not clip anything yet, because clipping is great in the right context. But like, if you can get stuff to sound really clean first, you're laughing. Let's go with those. They're a bit heavier. So I actually have this set up on a round robin, so it's not going to play the same one twice in a row. So just to make sure you know that. Right. Let me just do that. Like, if you guys really want to keep using transient shapers, I'm not going to stop you, and you don't have to listen to me. And maybe you'll find some incredible exploits for transient shapers. But you got to remember, when something has that few controls, you don't have that many controls. You don't have that much control, if you know what I mean. So these aren't compressed together at all yet. I'm going to turn them down slightly because they're clipping in the master. Yeah, the analog clip-ons, like, analog clipping is a great thing in general. So let's compress this. So we can hide the drums inside the hi-hats. Oh, no, I knew that sounded fucking weird. There we go. I was like, this doesn't sound how it should. So that's why I don't trust auto gain. So if you go full like mega compression like this, just blow it out, you lose all dynamics. That's what it sounds like. Any compressor works like this. You don't need to worry about the fact that I'm using Pro C for this. Any compressor works exactly the same way. So that the attack controls are the initial attack of anything loud. Our release is how long it suffocates it for, or how much time it takes for it to come back from it suffocating. Something like this can often be a good idea on full drum mixes, just like with 2 or 3, and then like a softer knee, little attack, as you can hear. Aaron Odin, sorry, my bad. I would say the difference is minimal in a way. Every compressor does act differently. Like, if I took the exact same settings from this and put them on another compressor, they would be different. Just like there are different kinds of like compression modes in compressors. Like, there are slight differences in the way that it releases, the shape it takes. You kind of have to learn your compressor, and it's why you guys don't see me using a different multiband ever, because the way your compressor works is something that you need to know. So, as we take the attack up, everything starts getting further apart because it's attacking slower, all of that. Is there anything you guys want me to sort of show you on this in particular? Because, like, sounds pretty convincing to me. Oh, 76s? Honestly, old school compressors, like the reason there are legendary compressors and like legendary hardware compressors is kind of what I was talking about, what I just was saying about how each compressor is a little different, like the shape in which they attack, the shape in which they decay, the shape in which they stay at the top once something's kind of engaged it. Those shapes all change. The 76 compressor, like the CLA 76, I have a WA 76 right in front of me, and I believe it was just called an L76. I can't remember what it was, but there's a legendary one called a something 76. And there's loads of 76 clones. The thing about the 76 that made it really exciting to people is the fact that you guys can't see it from here, but basically the ratio on it has 4 different buttons that go from 4, 8, 12, and 20 are different. So we've got 4, which would be this. 8, 12, and 20. There's not a huge difference between 12 and 20. But when you push them all in, it goes to a negative value. I think there's one in here that does that. Let me find it. Vocal Opto. Classic. No, it's not here. I swear there was one. Basically, on the 76s, it goes up and then down because there was like an unintended feature that if you push all 4 buttons in, it does all of them at the same time. Yeah, 20 is basically like infinity. Not gonna lie, I really like this drum loop. So one thing I'm noticing about the snare, kind of low energy. I think we want a little less of this. Where's the multiband? Wait, did I not multiband it at the end? What's going on? Oh yeah, I took it off, didn't I? Okay. Sorry, I'm just catching up to myself. Interesting thing about compressors is you can throw things in like extra loud in certain ways. Like if we wanted to, we could start blowing through this compressor because it's now what we're working with, and we can like turn the snare up loads. Doesn't get that much louder, but it pushes everything away a bit more. Or take it down, you still get to hear the snare. I mean, it is quieter, but yeah. Yeah. One thing I would recommend doing with a lot of your snares is multi-banding your lows. Like, I'm not going to do it on... Wait, where did I just do that? I'm going to get rid of that aggro EQ I just did. Oh, no, it's here. Okay. This is going through 2 compressors, so I'm just going to turn off the second one. Take the second compressor off for a second. Now, the one that was on the group, I will be happy to do that in a moment after I just sort this out. So low attack, middle attack, like that. We're not going to go all the way down. We just want a bit more at the beginning, something like that. So back to the whole group with everything on. I didn't do, that was not a positive difference. It is quiet though. Yeah. Oh, the oscilloscope's kind of just there for the fun of it right now. I'm a little concerned about the way the snare low end looks. There's very, very little of it. I think we probably want a slower attack. Or you could even like, after this, you could fully envelope your mids. Then turn them up. End up with a really punchy drum mix. Woo! This is the point at which I would clip. And this I wouldn't know as much without looking at an oscilloscope. You see these really small bits. Like these really small, very loud bits. If you clip those, you can get your thing a bit more in line. I would normally dry wet it. I would normally dry wet it so you still get some of those. But like seriously, just like a tape saturation. And I'd actually keep an eye on it. Yeah, we've got rid of those peaks. And we can go all the way to here if we want to, which is cool in a different like aesthetic. And then dry wet it so you get a bit of those clean transients. Maybe try a couple different modes. Yeah, that's more transparent here. No. I'm clipping. Yeah, well, I am clipping it because. So the reason I'm clipping it is without it. Let me freeze it. Is on the snare and on the kick, we've got these really loud bits, which sound good because of the way we're having the. Which sound good because of the compressor or like the way it's ended up being compressed. But they're way louder than they need to be. We want some of that, but we still want all of that crushing that we're doing with the limiter. Limiting compressor, sorry, because that's kind of all it's doing. It's just got a slow attack. Which actually, I'm not going to confuse you. That weird thought. So my aim with the wait, I got to refreeze, haven't I? So my aim with the clipper is probably to clip around here so that it's nice and like in line and like it's all kind of like the same-ish level, and then dry wet it. So what you're doing is I'm bringing in a bit of the dry signal so that we can choose how loud these bits actually are. And that choice is an important one, and it allows you to, shape your mix because of it. So I'll clip it all again from scratch. So as I bring in the gentle saturation, those get pushed into line. Did you see that? Like around here? We're pushing those in. So obviously this kind of feels a little undynamic. Then you just dry wet it. You can bring a bit of that click back. And that's something that you can actually just choose how they sound in a project. So yeah, like what we'll do right now is let's just get a saw pad, something that's going to take up the entire spectrum. I'm not going to bother doing low end mixing because I do that all the time, and you guys know what my thoughts are on that and the way I generally think about low end mixing. Let's just. Are these the new sample I told you about? Yeah. Let's just put 2 chords down. Let's just, I don't know. Just put these in, just something nice and full. You know what? I want to go major. I'll see you in a bit, B. I'm not going to be long on this. Let's just EQ this a bit. It's a bit. So, for example, the less we clip it, the more those drums jump out to the front with their transients. It's not a bad thing. It's just that's what they do. That'll make them jump to the forward. If we're clipping them completely, puts them further back in the mix. So that's something you can choose. And obviously, if you're choosing to sidechain this pad, which maybe we would, which let's take this as an example. I'm just going to do an LFO tool because it's not really important the way I do this right now. Oh fuck, you going to crash on me? You going to crash on me? No, we're good. I was just putting down some chords that I knew would work or like have, you know, not be boring to listen to. Let's do that. And then one more. Here. And here. Right. So, oh, wait, have I done this weirdly? I have done this weirdly. Okay. I'm going to do it opposite then. Okay, so I'm just going to create a compressor. I mean, not a compressor, like an LFO envelope that's just going to do this and make it sidechain to the hits. Like... How do I feel about LFO tool versus sidechain compression? I don't use LFO tool unless I'm being lazy. And it's like sometimes it's just quicker to do it as an example, especially here, because we're not really talking about the way we sidechain. We're talking about the way we mix where something that is compressed with other things, right? Okay, we need a bit of this. So, without compression. With compression. And the clipping and the mid-enveloping. Let's get rid of that because that's the confusing part of this. But like how much we clip is how much we push it to the back until it starts distorting, of course. Or right at the front. Right at the front. Let's check something out here. So you'll also hear the way the compression will be affecting the hi-hats. They sound sidechain. You notice how you're not even fucking hearing. You're not hearing the hi-hats start, apart from that one. That's because it's hitting over the transients of our other compressed things that have nice transients, and it's using that as a it's using the group compression as a way to make it just sound like it's one object, because that's what compression does. It treats everything as one thing. If we were to shorten all of the kicks, it would actually have a similar effect. It would actually mean that we'd get more hi-hat because of the fact that we're just kind of like doing that. Let me make them all the same length. Right, we can delete all these because it's just a repeating pattern. So if we shorten them to be really short, we'll get more hi-hat because of the way that the compressor's kind of working on everything. Very pendulum sounding kick, that actually. It's RGX. Yes, that's a good idea, but it would play with your groove. So like, here we go, like delay them back. Yeah, you get that flamming now. Makes it sound really rocky. That's actually interesting. I've never thought about doing it that way. Cool idea. You know, then all of those things really matter. And I do genuinely recommend you guys stop using transient shapers and start trying to play with compressors, because this is such a valuable skill. You know, and like another thing you could do here, which you don't have to do. This is probably more of a like, for anybody out there trying to produce like stuff that's kind of like supposed to sound a little bit acoustic, a good idea here. Let's go back to over here where we were using the shorter hat. Having a reverb that you send all these things to. A nice short one even. And then, you know, just EQing that however you want. I actually don't use drum buses all that much unless I'm making drum samples for myself. I think it's something I need to start doing a bit more, in all honesty. So then if we send this to the same compressor that everything else is going to, look at the effect this is going to have. So there's our... And then if we send, let's turn this up from 0. So obviously, if we wanted to, we could turn down our snare going into that. Or you could have just even a little bit of it. Like, so you're not even noticing it's there, but listen to the huge, huge difference it makes when you turn it out. You know, I'm hearing a lot of this. So we can just get rid of that. And that's it without. Yeah, I am emulating a room mic, yeah. Also, if you do use groups, which I am not a big user of, maybe I should be. I think maybe it would help me out in terms of the way I think about things. But you know, if you have a collection of sounds that you know are just going to mix together, or if you wanted to, you could fucking. You know, you can go mental. You can do what you want, like. Yeah. Go on the kicks. Or, you know, just go back to the halftime. Or like you can get weird and fucking do some like asymmetrical beats, like what's kind of cool about having groups like that is that you can just kind of do what you want. And also, when you have groups, you like, and you know everything works together, you can just kind of fuck with it in creative ways, like. Get rid of that frequency. You got yourself a nice kind of like weird top loop. Or you can get really creative and do some mad shit. Where are you? or you can multi-band frequency shift it. I do this for samples for myself sometimes. So take the highs to make them sound different. Nice. Up. I like it. All right, let me get like our punch. We can take our punch up. Totally different drum loop. If you're trying to get a kick and snare to hit at the same time, bussing is actually a really good idea for it. I'd also, you know what, let's do that here. So we've got, let me take the frequency shifter off because that's kind of a troll move. So let's go like to one of these, right? Someone was in here asking about those the other day. I think it was Zerk. These sounded nice. So now we have this. The compressor's keeping that in line completely. Obviously, you got this big peak here. Clip her out. Oh, don't entirely clip her out. Just have a bit of it. Got a lot of options if you bus. You know, I'm actually kind of talking myself into bussing my drums now. Like, this is making me want to. I'd say compress your kick and snare together. Like, if you want to, you can low cut. You can low cut your. Take out the fundamental of your snare completely. But you do lose something for that. So you can also do this. Add a load of the snare's fundamental frequency back into your kick on a different channel. Now that's the other way to do it. You can also saturate them together, but that depends on how clean you want your track to pretend to be, or be. No shade. You can always use multiband compression on the lows of the kick for what? Would I focus more the compressor more on the snare? Honestly, human ears naturally compress things slightly, like especially loud noises. Like your ears do naturally compress because it's a physical membrane and it can only vibrate so much. So really loud stuff does sort of compress in your ears. Quite a natural thing. So having the compressor because you're right, it's folding the hi-hats around the low end because it's got really long. Like here, let's look at the difference between this. So we've got versus has more hi-hat. So like if we only listen to the high end of this, it'll be more apparent. Versus see how much less hi-hat we get. Right? So naturally, that's like, if there's going to be that much energy coming from your kick, you kind of want that to happen in a way. It's a natural way for things to sound to the human ear. So I wouldn't stress about it personally. A lot of snare. Getting a lot of snare out of this. I would argue too much. Getting a lot of this. But yeah, I mean, like if you wanted it to focus less on the kick, I don't know necessarily which compressor you're personally using, but I know that if I wanted that to happen, I could do that here. In the side chain, no, not the side chain, in like the internal mixer, so I can turn on the low cut and I can like, whoa, why does it sound so fucking, oh right, because it's bringing up the low end loads now. So we're only compressing the highs now. Well, no, we're only compressing according to the highs. So it's only listening to the highs. This is where it starts getting confusing, I imagine. Or we could just compress the lows. Or just compress according to the lows, I should say. So transients no longer matter. The option's there for you. Is there like a weird sound in this sample? Weird. I think it's the high-pitched noise from these hi-hats. These hi-hats have this really resonant frequency in them. Right, anyway, I'm going to slow this way down. A bit faster. Are you talking about the noise? The noise, Aaron Odin. There's did we get rid of that? Oh no, I guess the compressor's bringing up the noise, the noise floor on that. Oh no, that's just not doing it all that much anymore. There you go. We did that earlier. I don't know why it's reverted. I hope this has helped you guys with compression. Like, there's lots of options. You have lots of options here. But if you want to take anything from this, I recommend it's that you spend time with your compressors and don't use quick fixes. Joshy TV, thank you. Well, it sounds fucking convincing as shit, doesn't it? Right, well, I'm going to export that. This isn't even EQ'd. You hear that? Ee. It's worth looking out for resonances in general. Ooh, it's a really strong one. This is what Soothes for. This is what Soothe was designed for anyway. Then you EQ, post, soothe, and then we're gonna get on Terraria. It's still there. I can't believe Soothe's missing it. There it is. Soothe is very expensive. I get that. This will sound really good at drum and bass speed. You were like, I thought that would sound a lot better. Click track. Don't worry, you're not going to miss much. We're about to move to Terraria. Did we turn off? Yeah, we did. Okay, cool. So that's our suffocation factor right there. You guys know all this. We've just been talking about it. Priorities would be FabFilter. Yeah. Oh, I don't know about that, Montezuma. I wouldn't say that. I don't think I could get. I don't think I could get anything close to Soothe without Soothe. I mean, honestly, if you're trying to fix high-end stuff, it's better to saturate or excite. Like, grab this and just like tape saturate it. That often helps a lot more than actual dynamic EQing. I feel like we could EQ into the compressor. I'm just doing all this before we move on. You could, but the brilliance of Soothe is the fact that it does it in real time, and that's why it's worthwhile. Yeah. You get the idea. So many options. So many options, so little time. Let's frequency shift this now. There's Feel Good Inc. I'd rather have Soothe than a tape machine. If we're being honest. Thanks, Reckless Prod. I'm done for now with this anyway. I'm gonna just double check that I don't want to change this slightly. Maybe I'll just do full band frequency shift. Honestly, compressors, amazing. Oh. Let's put that there. I was trying to give myself some options here. You don't need Soothe until after you've got the FabFilter stuff. You're tripping, Fenton. We are doing Terraria tonight. ProQ does dynamic tweeting too, but I would use it more to kind of like change like a vocal. You could use it like really good like a de-esser in a vocal, or like if you've got a synth that maybe like when it opens up you get like too much of one frequency, or you want more of one frequency when it opens up. Stuff like that. Yeah, you do, Fenton. I'm happy. I'm going to bounce this in place and then we're going to play Terraria. ECM. Let's go in here. All hits. Beats. 128. Comp. Oh, wait, I've put 281. 128. Oh, my God. 128. Comp. Example. Beat. We happy? Any last dying questions while I load up Terraria? I'm just going to load her up. So like, you don't need to worry about me going anywhere. I'll chat to you. I mean, like, let's keep talking about production. I'm happy to keep talking about production like all night. I'm glad you guys feel like you learned stuff on this one, because I think that compression is something, honestly, really, really like recently I've been relearning compressors. It's kind of fun to talk about it because I'm kind of relearning where compressors fit in my life and what I need them to do for me to make the results that I want it to make. Does that make sense? A bit, I imagine. Probably not fully. Because I don't do words good. Why does Space Lace's drums sound different? He does some interesting stuff with the transient. really interesting stuff with the transient. Do I use any hardware in processing and keep stuff in the box? Generally, I keep it in the box. I have post-processed without outboard before, but honestly, it didn't make much of a difference, I'll be honest. Do I think Space Laces... so, yeah, the transients on Space Laces kicks, to my knowledge, are really long. I've stolen one of his kicks before. I'll show you how it sounds. Real quick, I'll show you how one of his kicks sounds. Like, don't use quick fixes. Don't use transient shapers. You can learn, if you learn how to make if you learn how to use compressors, you're going to do a lot better in the long run. His mixes are unreal. They are. They're kind of upsetting. Kicks. Oh, wait, no. Here's the... Is that it, or is it? Yeah, that's the one. So his transients are insanely long, and they have all this weird information in them. Yeah, he does. He does reverb automation on basses. That's a really common technique. Let me open this up. Mix. So I'm going to show you this really quick because it matters. Compacts. Cohen Sound. I really like Cohen Sound sound design, but it doesn't do it for me like it used to. Their sound design now is really like soft, and I prefer harder edged sound design, generally speaking. Where is it? So yeah, reverb automation on basses. Let's just quickly go over that because it might be useful to you guys. So this isn't the final mix. I ended up doing some other shit in another project file, but I'm pretty sure it's in here. Yeah, it is. So here's the bass sound for this section. I'm going to turn off the sidechainer for it too. Freight Train. I don't know which one that is. Anyway. So I'm going to take off the reverb automation. Do you hear that difference? Off, off, still off, on. So what I have is in between these tiny gaps in the bass, which are always going to be there on modulated basses because you're opening and closing things, I'm adding this, which is a very stereo bandpass version of the same sound. Take it out though. Hear that difference? Back in. Out. That's how you do that shit, basically. Do it in audio. Let me put on this. A bit loud. You can also kind of like make this one, not in this case, but like you can make this one mono, and it really exaggerates the effect. So if you have your basses in mono, this effect's even better. That's not the only difference. I mean, like, I think the reason that my basses sound like they do is because the melody and the harmonics and the bass are going in different directions to create harmony. That's generally how I aim to have those things be. But yeah, you get the idea. How do I think he generates that weird noise in his transients? I'm not sure, if I'm honest. Part of me wonders if he's doing, oh my God. Okay, I think I need to try this. I mean, I've just had a fucking realization. I'm gonna try something. Honestly, click track. I don't know. I don't play. If there is, I'm not part of that game. I don't care. I care about whoa. I care about making really cool music. Yeah. I mean, I did kind of semi go in on that one, but it was more because it just felt like the correct call for the aesthetic of the track. Let's get out this kick. Where are you? I have an idea, and I'm not sure if this is going to do it. But I had this thought the other day about rotating phases. If this works, I'll explain it. If it doesn't, we're just going to go play Terraria, okay? What was it? Did that not do anything? That's a shame. Did a whole lot less than I thought it would. I wonder, okay, 2 seconds. I want to try and accentuate this. If I just do like 6 of these, is that going to do it? No, okay. What if I do like... Yeah! Yeah, maybe. And was doing shit like this. Like, I don't know him personally. I know a few people who do. No, that's just disperser. Oh, wait. Well, I was wondering if having... That's just the same. I was wondering if having it kind of... I was wondering if he was doing like a special kind of dispersing that kind of goes beyond what disperser does. And like reining that in, because like with that you're getting extra noise. Like here, you can hear it and you'll be able to see it. It's like massive. It's cool, but it's not what he's doing. What he could be doing actually. Like get rid of all of this. He could very, very, very well just have been fucking stretching his transients. That wouldn't surprise me one little bit, actually. Where are you gone? Like what? You just fucking grab your transients. It's like the thing that I think he is doing, and the reason I think it sounds good is because I'm pretty sure he's adding low end before it like actually like peaks down. Yeah, that's perfect. Then what would bring this to here? Turn this on. Duplicate this. Polyphonic probably. And then we like stretch this out. This is a weird idea. If it works, I'm going to be very happy. Let's do more of that. Ooh, that sounds correct. Yeah, that's closer. I think he's probably stretching them more than that. Oh, I only want this. God, I'm going down a rabbit hole so hard here. Love it. What I'm here for. And then we want this to be, yeah. I think that algorithm is doing the wrong thing. I think we want a different one. Oh, that's more the territory I'm after, to be honest. What if we do? What other algorithms do we have? That almost wouldn't... Like, if you EQ this, you could probably... Like, if you get rid of that resonant frequency. Yeah. That was loud. Like, fully soothe it so it doesn't have a note. There you go. Then give it loads of low. Like, it doesn't line up quite right. But that kind of sounded correct to me. Like, or like on the way to sounding correct. Like, I need to get rid of the high end on that. Fade it in slightly. Someone's going to be in Buster's chat like someone asked Stan to make a Space Laces kick, and he's going to be like, "Oh no." I say we bounce those in place and see what it looks like. Okay. So if I delete that, because that's mad, and then normalize all of this, and this. Get rid of that. We might end up with a very odd kick here. Might be cool. Might also be very shit. Yeah, no, this is complicated because I'm trying to do something weird. Edit. You can wait. How's this? Ooh. That's not far off, you know. That's not far off at all. What if we just compress the shit out of that? That sounds like a Space Laces kick. No, it's not as good. Talk.aif. But like, we got... Like, I haven't done high-end layering, but... Stretchy transients, apparently. The kick's from Torque. What if we do this? Here we go. Here we fucking go. Look at all that goodness right there. That's what we want. Ooh. Whoops. Fine. Ugh. Oh, you guys are talking about Linux. I know so little about Linux, it physically hurts. Kind of into that. And then compress it. Not quite right. What's the beginning of his thing sound like? It's like it hits twice. Like, yeah, it goes down then up. That's so weird. So like you've got transient, fucking weird bit, and then like a kick. How crazy is that? So weird. Low pass to transient. I wouldn't say that. I would say that it's like it goes down then up almost. Down then like up and down again. I think if I multi-band it, we might be able to get a load of punch out of it. Yeah. And then clip that. Never really sat down and thought about this, I'll be honest. There you go. I think that's pretty close. I mean, functionally it is anyway. And maybe like just frequency shift it down slightly. And then disperse it slightly. And then recompress it. That sounds really space lacy, that. And then I'd like normalize that by hand. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with how that sounds. sorry, Dubs, that sucks. Oh, what's up? Oh, man, that sucks. Oh, that. There it is. Okay. So we made a Space Laces kick. I'm happy. It would be in dubstep. The kick in Talk. I'll play you guys Talk. You've probably heard it if you've ever listened to any like dubstep sets because everyone plays it. That's all right, Hexic. Honestly, I wouldn't have done it if I hadn't like have been considering kind of spending a little time on doing that some point soon. Anyway, so yeah. Here's a listen to the track that the kick I was kind of copying is from. Multi-out. There we go. All right, here you go. You should be able to hear it. Check. 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 But yeah, you could totally just nick it from the track. Yeah, I'm pretty happy. Like, if I was really going in, like, there'd be... Yeah, I like this kick a lot. If we had more time, I'd probably fold some white noise into it. For now, I'm just going to save this project file as Lacy Kick, and I'll play with that on my own tomorrow. But yeah. Also, frequency shifting down your kicks is always going to be nice. Right? If you want that super low tone, just like take it down a little. His is pretty long. Oh yeah, but like we could fix that by just doing this. Right? And then you can kind of hear that wobble and stuff. You could get rid of that by just EQing at the end. But yeah. Probably the better call. The better call there would probably be to like do it after this. So like do that, saturate it, get it clean, then actually clean it up again and then elongate it. But yeah. I don't know if I'm going to do these every Sunday. Today I didn't feel like making tracks. So like I was just doing this instead. We need to get on Terraria. Buster will be waiting for me. I'm being a dickhead here.